The Foundation's first project was rebuilding New Haven itself. The colony was reconstructed as a memorial and educational center, where children from across the galaxy could learn about the importance of peace and understanding. Representative Sarah Martinez read the names of all 800,000 victims at the memorial's dedication ceremony. The list took 12 hours to complete. Parents from across human space attended, along with delegations from dozens of alien worlds. The inscription on the central monument was simple: they were innocent. That should have been enough. 6 months after the war, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Human merchant ships were no longer seen as easy targets. Human colonies were given wide berths by potential aggressors. The phrase "Remember New Haven" became synonymous with humanity's long patience and terrible efficiency when that patience was finally exhausted. Ambassador Stephen Brooks addressed the Galactic Senate, now meeting on Earth for the first time in galactic history. The ancient chamber had been rebuilt in Geneva, symbolizing humanity's emergence as a major galactic power. "We offered you trade, friendship, and cooperation," Brooks told the assembled alien representatives. "Some of you chose to murder our children instead. The choice of how humanity treats you going forward is yours to make." The Zephyrian representative, a young female named Silandra, who had been elected under the new democratic system, stood to address the Senate. "My people committed an unforgivable crime," she said. "We expected revenge. We expected to be enslaved or destroyed. Instead, we received justice and the chance to build something better. Humanity has shown us that strength isn't about the ability to destroy. It's about the wisdom to know when to stop." The new galactic order was built on a simple principle: the protection of the innocent. The New Haven Accords, signed by every major power, established clear rules for the treatment of civilian populations. Any attack on children would be considered an attack on humanity itself. Young Zephyrian students now visited the New Haven Memorial as part of their education. Their teacher, a former collective officer named Krath, who had been present during the massacre, spoke to them quietly. "This is why we learn about other species' children. This is why we protect them. Because there are some lines that, once crossed, can never be uncrossed." Above them, human ships patrolled the system, not as occupiers, but as guardians. The children of New Haven were gone, but their sacrifice ensured that no other children of any species would suffer the same fate. Dr. Amanda Foster stood at her daughter's memorial marker, watching alien children from a dozen different worlds play together in the rebuilt park. Maya and Sophie would have loved this, she thought. They would have wanted to be friends with all of them. A young Zephyrian girl approached her, offering a flower she had picked from the memorial garden. "For your daughters," the child said in careful English. Amanda knelt down and accepted the flower. "Thank you. They would have liked you." The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their unwavering dedication to protecting the innocent and their terrifying efficiency when that protection failed. But perhaps more importantly, they had learned that humans knew the difference between justice and revenge. They understood that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to rebuild. The children of New Haven were gone, but their memory lived on in the safer galaxy their sacrifice had created. And in the end, that was the most human response of all, turning tragedy into hope and loss into a promise that it would never happen again. The galaxy would remember New Haven, but more importantly, they would remember the lessons humanity taught them. Some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost. And children, all children, everywhere, were at the top of that list. Mitchell looked at him with cold eyes. "You killed our children. Did you really think we weren't prepared for war?" As Vextar was led away in restraints, he began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Humans weren't the peaceful explorers he had thought them to be. They were something far more dangerous, a species that preferred peace, but was utterly terrifying when forced to fight. Within 6 hours of the 72-hour deadline, the entire Zephyrian collective was under human control. Not a single human. Life had been lost. Zephyrian casualties were limited to headaches and bruised pride. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated a level of military capability that no one had suspected. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. President Wells would soon announce that justice, not conquest, was humanity's goal. And the galaxy would learn that being conquered by humans might have been the merciful option the galaxy expected. Humanity to act like conquerors. They had seen species rise to power before, always through brutality, always through crushing their enemies completely. The Zephyrian collective was helpless now, their entire civilization under human control. It would have been easy for Earth to demand tribute, to enslave their population, to take revenge for New Haven. Instead, President Catherine Wells did something that shocked every alien government. She announced that humanity would hold trials. Message was broadcast from the captured Zephyrian command center on their homeworld. Wells stood at the podium where Zephyrian leaders had once planned their wars, flanked by Admiral Hayes and General Davis. To the people of the galaxy, she began, humanity has achieved complete military control over the Zephyrian collective. Their government has surrendered unconditionally. Their military forces have been captured intact. The alien ambassadors watching the broadcast held their breath, waiting to hear Earth's demands. However, Wells continued, we are not conquerors. We are seekers of justice. Every individual involved in planning or executing the massacre at New Haven will face trial according to galactic law. They will be given legal representation. They will be allowed to present evidence in their defense. They will receive every protection that they denied to our children. Chancellor Tavara of the Centaurian Republic watched the speech from her office. She had known humans for decades, but this still surprised her. They could have taken everything. She murmured to her aide, instead, they're following the law. The trials began 1 month later on Earth. President Wells insisted they be held in Geneva, where the Earth Federation government could ensure proper procedures were followed. Every session was broadcast live across the galaxy. The chief prosecutor was Ellen Davis, a former criminal lawyer who had spent years working on interspecies legal cases. She was known for her methodical approach and her absolute dedication to following proper procedures. We are not here for revenge, she told the opening session. We are here to ensure that those responsible for the murder of 800,000 innocent children face justice. Fleet Commander Vex Tar and his senior staff sat at the defendant's table, represented by Defense Coordinator Marcus Thompson, one of Earth's most experienced defense attorneys. Despite the magnitude of their crimes, they received the best legal representation available. The evidence was overwhelming. Communications intercepts showed the planning process. Tactical recordings demonstrated the deliberate targeting of civilian areas. Survivor testimony painted a clear picture of systematic slaughter. Dr. Amanda Foster took the stand on the third day of the trial. She spoke quietly about her daughters, Maya and Sophie, describing their hopes and dreams, their plans for the future that would never come. They were 8 years old, she said, her voice steady despite her tears. They wanted to be teachers when they grew up. They liked to read stories about space exploration. They thought aliens were wonderful and exciting. Vex Tar refused to meet her eyes. The defense argued that the attack had been a military necessity, that New Haven represented a strategic threat to Zephyrian space. They claimed their clients had been following orders, acting within their military authority. Marcus Thompson did his job professionally, presenting every possible argument in his client's defense. But even he knew the evidence was damning. My clients believed they were protecting their people, he argued. They made a terrible mistake but it was born from fear, not malice. Ellen Davis's response was calm and devastating. Fear does not justify the systematic murder of children. Military authority does not extend to genocide. There is no law, no treaty, no principle of war that makes this acceptable. The trials lasted 3 months. Every defendant received a fair hearing. Every piece of evidence was examined thoroughly. The galaxy watched as humanity demonstrated their commitment to justice over vengeance. The verdicts were unanimous. Guilty on all charges. The sentences shocked the galaxy once again. Most species expected mass executions, public displays of human wrath. Instead, the court announced that the convicted war criminals would be exiled to an uninhabited world with basic supplies. For humans, President Wells explained, being forgotten is a fate worse than death. These individuals will live out their lives knowing that history will remember them only as the people who murdered children. But the trials were only part of humanity's response. The real surprise came when Earth announced the restructuring of Zephyrian society. The collective's military was disbanded permanently. Their weapons were destroyed or converted to peaceful purposes. Their government was reformed under human oversight, with colonial administrator Peter Johnson and cultural liaison officer Diana Mills leading the transition team. The Zephyrian people expected to become slaves or servants. Instead, they found themselves receiving aid, education, and opportunities they had never known under their warrior culture. Johnson addressed the Zephyrian population from their capital city. "We are not here to rule you. We are here to help you build a better society, one that values life instead of conquest, one that protects children instead of targeting them." The most significant change was the establishment of the New Haven Memorial Foundation. Funded by Zephyrian resources, but administered by human oversight, the Foundation's mission was to protect children of all species across the galaxy. Diana Mills explained the program to a gathering of Zephyrian educators. Every child has the right to grow up safely. Every parent has the right to see their children reach adulthood. This foundation will ensure that what happened at New Haven never happens again, anywhere in the galaxy. But in the command centers of human ships, officers checked their equipment with quiet confidence. They had trained for this moment. They had planned for every contingency. Most importantly, they were fighting for the memory of 800,000 children who would never come home. The timer reached 0. President Wells looked around the command center one final time. "Gentlemen and ladies, execute Protocol Omega." The reckoning had begun. The 72 hours expired at exactly 14:30 Universal Standard Time. At 14:31, every light on every Zephyrian world went out. The cyber attack was the first phase of Protocol Omega. Kevin Park and his team had spent years mapping Zephyrian computer systems. What the aliens thought were secure networks had been quietly infiltrated by human programs disguised as routine software updates. On Zephyrian Prime, Fleet Commander Vextar was in the middle of a strategy meeting when the lights died. Emergency. Power kicked in a few seconds later, but the damage was already done. Every computer system in the military complex had crashed. Communication networks were down. Even basic systems like elevators and door controls had stopped working. "What's happening?" Vextar demanded. His technical officer was frantically checking. "Diagnostics. Sir, it appears to be a complete system failure. Everything is offline. Get it fixed." "We're trying, sir, but the damage seems to be everywhere at once. It's like every piece of software we have has been corrupted." The same scene was playing out across the entire Zephyrian collective. Military bases, government buildings, civilian infrastructure. Everything that depended on computer systems had failed simultaneously. But this was just the beginning. Phase 2 began 15 minutes later. Major Claire Thompson's voice came through secure communicators to agents across Zephyrine. Space. Phoenix Team, Raven Team, all units, execute your missions. Show them what happens when they hurt our children. Alex Turner had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. He stepped out of his farmhouse on Zephyria 7 and looked around it. The quiet colony where he had lived and worked. His neighbors had no idea what was about to happen. The explosive charges he had carefully placed over the years detonated in perfect sequence. The planet's main power station, communication relay, and military depot all went dark within seconds of each other. But no one was hurt. Alex had timed the explosions for shift changes when the facilities would be nearly empty. Danny Rodriguez was in his classroom at Zephyrine University when he received the signal. He calmly dismissed his students, locked the door, and opened a hidden panel in his desk. Inside were devices that would disable every government building in the capital city. Nicole Wright closed her medical clinic and walked to the spaceport. The Zephyrine officials she had treated for years waved and smiled at her, not knowing that she had just planted devices that would ground every ship on the planet. Across dozens of worlds, human agents emerged from years of deep cover. They moved with surgical precision, targeting key infrastructure while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. The Zephyrians found themselves blind, deaf, and paralyzed within hours. But the most shocking phase was yet to come. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Zephyrine Prime. What the aliens saw defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. 200 ships materialized around their home world. But these weren't the exploration vessels and cargo haulers that the galaxy was used to seeing. These were warships, sleek and deadly, equipped with weapons that violated every treaty in galactic law. "Sir," Mitchell's communications officer reported, "the Zephyrians are trying to hail us. Put them through." Vextar's face appeared on the main screen. The proud fleet commander looked shaken and confused. "Human vessels, you are in violation of Zephyrine space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Mitchell's response was calm and cold. "Fleet Commander Vextar, you are under arrest for the murder of 800,000 human children. Surrender your ships and prepare to be boarded." "You cannot be serious. My fleet outnumbers yours 3 to 1. Your fleet is welcome to try to stop us." The Zephyrine response was immediate. Their ships, despite the computer problems, still had basic weapons and engines. They launched a massive attack against the human fleet, confident that their superior numbers would carry the day. They were wrong. The battle that followed lasted exactly 18 minutes. Historians would later call it the most one-sided military engagement in galactic history. Human ships didn't return fire in any conventional sense. Instead, they used weapons that no alien species had ever seen. Temporal displacement cannons sent Zephyrine ships minutes into the future, where they rematerialized in empty space, far from the battle. Quantum disruptor beams shut down alien engines without damaging the hulls. Neural field generators rendered entire crews unconscious. Captain Jennifer Blake commanded the UHS Retribution as it engaged a squadron of Zephyrine heavy cruisers. Her temporal cannons fired once each, and 12 enemy ships simply vanished from the battlefield. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "enemy vessels displaced. They'll rematerialize in approximately 4 minutes, 3 million kilometers from our position." "Excellent. Move to the next target." The Zephyrine fleet wasn't being destroyed. It was being systematically dismantled. One by one, their ships were disabled, displaced, or rendered inoperable. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could make their vessels disappear at will. Vextar watched in horror as his mighty fleet was taken apart piece by piece. "How are they doing this? These weapons don't exist." "Sir, His Science," officer reported frantically, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known technology. It's like they're manipulating space and time itself. That's impossible. I know, sir, but the evidence is right there. Meanwhile, Dr. Nathan Porter's biological weapons were being deployed by human special forces teams. Marines in powered armor boarded disabled Zephyrian ships, using neural disruptors to render the crews unconscious without causing permanent harm. Sergeant First Class Danny Rodriguez led one such boarding team onto a Zephyrian battleship. His squad moved through the corridors, stepping over unconscious aliens who would wake up in a few hours with nothing worse than headaches. Command, this is Rodriguez. Ship secured. No casualties on either side. Understood, Rodriguez. Prepare the crew for transport. Staff Sergeant Nicole Wright's team was responsible for capturing key personnel. They had specific orders to arrest every officer involved in planning or executing the New Haven massacre. There, she pointed to an unconscious Zephyrian in an admiral's uniform. That's Sub-Commander Kralex. He was one of Vexstar's senior staff during the attack. Her team carefully lifted the alien and carried him to a human transport ship. He would wake up in a holding cell, awaiting trial for war crimes. The ground assault was equally swift and overwhelming. Human Marines equipped with Dr. Porter's biological weapons moved through Zephyrian cities like ghosts. Entire military bases fell asleep at their posts. Government buildings were captured without a single shot being fired. Major Claire Thompson coordinated the operation from her command ship. Phoenix Team, report status. All primary targets secured, Alex Turner replied. Zephyria 7 is under human control. Local population is unharmed, but confused. Raven Team, report. Zephyrian Prime's government complex captured. Danny Rodriguez. Confirmed. High Command is in custody. One by one, every major Zephyrian world fell under human control. The aliens found themselves prisoners in their own territory, unable to fight back against an enemy they couldn't understand. The most terrifying aspect of humanity's response wasn't their advanced weapons or their tactical brilliance. It was their restraint. Every Zephyrian ship was disabled, not destroyed. Every base was captured, not obliterated. Every officer was arrested, not executed. The message was clear. When humans wanted to destroy something, they destroyed it completely. When they wanted to capture it, no force in the galaxy could stop them. Fleet Commander Vexstar found himself alone on his ship's bridge, watching as his crew was carried away by human Marines. Captain Mitchell appeared before him in person, flanked by 2 soldiers in powered armor. Fleet Commander Vexstar, Mitchell said formally, you are under arrest for war crimes against humanity. You have the right to legal representation and a fair trial. This is impossible, Vexstar whispered. How did you do this? Where did these weapons come from? The galaxy watched the countdown with growing unease. 72 hours seemed like a long time, but it was passing quickly. News networks across dozens of worlds provided constant updates. Most commentators believed the humans were bluffing, but a few began to notice strange movements in space. On the Centaurian homeworld, Chancellor Tevara called another emergency meeting. She was old enough to remember when humans first appeared in galactic politics. Back then, they had seemed harmless, eager to trade and learn, always asking questions about other cultures. Something is wrong, she told her advisors. I've been monitoring human communications. They've gone completely silent. No diplomatic chatter, no trade negotiations, nothing. Her military advisor, General Thok, dismissed her concerns. They're probably planning some kind of protest. Maybe they'll file a complaint with the Galactic Court. No, Tavara said slowly. This feels different. I've dealt with humans for 30 years. When they get quiet like this, it means they're planning something big. Meanwhile, human ships continued to gather at staging areas throughout space. The movements were subtle at first. A cargo vessel changing course here, a research ship altering its schedule there. But intelligence officers from several species began to notice patterns. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching as more ships joined his growing fleet. What had started as a few dozen vessels was now approaching 200. And these weren't the exploration ships that most aliens were familiar with. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "the UHS Retribution has arrived. Captain Jennifer Blake sends her regards." Mitchell nodded. The Retribution was even newer than his own ship, equipped with experimental weapons that had never been tested. In real combat, signal the fleet. Maintain radio silence until further orders. The human fleet wasn't just gathering ships. They were positioning assets that most alien species didn't even know existed. Space stations that had been disguised as research facilities were revealing their true nature. Mining operations in asteroid fields turned out to be weapons platforms. Even some merchant vessels opened hidden compartments containing military hardware. On Zephyrian Prime, Fleet Commander Vextar was becoming less confident. His intelligence officers brought him reports that troubled him. "Sir, we're detecting unusual human activity across 17 sectors. Ship movements, communications, blackouts, power signatures that don't match civilian specifications." "How many ships are we talking about?" Vextar asked. "Unknown, sir. They've disappeared from our sensors." Vextar frowned. Humans didn't have stealth technology. At least, not that anyone knew about. "Expand the search. Use deep space scanners." "Major." Claire Thompson monitored her agents from Earth's intelligence center. Across Zephyrian space, deep cover operatives who had lived normal lives for years were quietly preparing for Action. Alex Turner had been a farm equipment salesman on Zephyria 7 for 3 years. His neighbors knew him as a friendly human who helped fix their machinery and told stories about Earth. They didn't know he was a former Special Forces operator with enough explosives hidden in his barn to level half the colony. "Phoenix team, report status." Thompson's voice came through his earpiece. "All targets identified," Alex replied quietly. "Power stations, communication hubs, military depots. We can take them all offline simultaneously. Maintain cover for now. Execute only on my signal." Similar conversations were happening across dozens of worlds. Kevin Park, who ran a computer repair shop on Zephyrian Prime, had been mapping their entire communication network. Danny Rodriguez taught human literature at a Zephyrian university while secretly gathering intelligence on military movements. Nicole Wright operated a medical clinic while identifying key personnel in the local government. Each agent had a specific mission. None of them knew the full scope of the operation, but together they represented the most comprehensive intelligence network ever deployed against an alien species. Dr. Nathan Porter worked around the clock in his laboratory on Earth. The weapons he was developing weren't designed to kill President Wells, had been very clear about that. But they would be devastatingly effective. "The neural disruptor is complete," he reported to General Davis. "It specifically targets Zephyrian brain chemistry. Will cause immediate unconsciousness for approximately 6 hours. Side effects: mild headache when they wake up. Maybe some nausea, but no permanent damage." Davis nodded approvingly. "And the ship disabling charges? Also ready. They'll shut down Zephyrian power systems without causing hull breaches. The crews will be stranded but alive." As the countdown entered its final day, several alien governments made desperate attempts to prevent what they sensed was coming. The Andromedan Trade Federation offered to pay reparations to the families of New Haven victims. The Crystal Entities proposed establishing a memorial fund. Even some Zephyrian colonies began expressing doubts about their government's actions. Ambassador, Stephen Brooks fielded dozens of calls from alien diplomats. All of them wanted to know what humanity was planning. His response was always the same. The terms were clearly stated. 72 hours to surrender those responsible. But what if they don't comply? Asked the Centaurian ambassador. Brooks looked at him calmly. Then they'll learn why we don't let our children play with fire. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos and her intelligence team worked feverishly to map every aspect of Zephyrian military capability. Years of careful observation were paying off. They knew the location of every ship, every base, every command center. Their entire fleet is concentrated around their home system, she reported to Admiral Hayes. They're expecting a direct assault. Are they ready for one? Santos smiled grimly. They're ready for the kind of assault they would launch. They're not ready for what we're planning. The Zephyrian military was indeed preparing for a conventional attack. They moved their most powerful ships into defensive positions around their key worlds. Ground forces were placed on high alert. Civilians were evacuated from potential target areas. What they didn't understand was that humans had spent decades studying galactic warfare. They knew how every major species fought, what tactics they used, what weaknesses they had. More importantly, they had developed entirely new approaches to combat that no alien military had ever encountered. Captain Jennifer Blake commanded the UHS Retribution from the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. Her crew was young but highly trained, selected from the best officers in Earth's fleet. Ma'am, her weapons officer reported, all systems show green. The temporal displacement cannons are fully charged. Excellent. Maintain position and await. Orders. The temporal displacement cannons were humanity's most closely guarded secret. They didn't destroy enemy ships. They moved them through time, sending them several minutes into the future. It was non-lethal, but completely effective. A ship that was displaced would rematerialize in empty space, far from the battle, with its crew confused but unharmed. As the final hours ticked away, the galaxy held its breath. News networks provided constant coverage. Betting pools opened on whether the humans would actually follow through on their threat. Most odds favored a diplomatic solution at the last minute. On Earth, President Wells stood in the command center, surrounded by her top military advisors. Banks of screens showed the positions of human forces throughout space. Everything was ready. Status report, she requested. All fleets in position, Admiral Hayes reported. Special operations teams ready. Confirmed General Davis. Intelligence assets activated, added Major Thompson. Cyber warfare systems online, said Kevin Park, who had been recalled from his cover identity for the final phase. Wells looked at the countdown timer. 3 hours and 17 minutes remaining. Chancellor Tavara made one last attempt to contact Earth directly. Her message was simple. Please, let us help resolve this peacefully. There has been enough bloodshed. Wells personally responded to the Centaurian leader. Chancellor, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't about bloodshed. This is about justice. And justice for 800,000 murdered children cannot be negotiated. On Zephyrian Prime, Fleet Commander Vextar was losing his confidence. His intelligence reports painted a picture that didn't make sense. Humans seemed to have military capabilities that far exceeded anything they had previously demonstrated. Sir, his aide reported nervously, the High Command is asking if we should consider compliance with the human demands. Vextar's pride flared. Never. The Zephyrian Collective does not bow to inferior species. But privately, he was beginning to wonder if humans were as inferior as he had believed. The countdown entered its final hour. Across the galaxy, military forces prepared for what many expected to be a brief but bloody conflict. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and had been fighting wars for centuries. Humans were newcomers to galactic politics, more known for their scientific achievements than their military prowess. The message from New Haven reached Earth 36 hours after the massacre. It arrived at the Global Defense Command Center in Geneva, where night shift operator Danny Walsh was monitoring deep space communications. He had been expecting routine reports about crop yields and shipping schedules. Instead, he received footage that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Danny's hands shook as he watched Lisa Parker's transmission. The images were unclear, distorted by distance and interference, but the message was crystal clear. 800,000 children were dead. He immediately contacted his supervisor, Commander Helen Brooks. Within minutes, the transmission was being analyzed by Earth's best intelligence officers. Within an hour, it was confirmed as genuine. President Catherine Wells was awakened at 3 in the morning. She sat in her bedroom, still in her pajamas, watching the footage on her secure tablet. Her own granddaughter was 8 years old, the same age as many of the victims. Catherine had to pause the video several times to compose herself. How sure are we that this is real? She asked her chief of staff, Gary Miller. Completely sure, Madam President. We verified the source codes and checked the transmission route. This came from New Haven. Catherine closed her eyes. As president of the Earth Federation, she had dealt with many crises. Natural disasters, economic problems, even terrorist attacks. But nothing like this. Nothing that involved the systematic murder of children on such a massive scale. Wake everyone up, she said quietly. I want an emergency session of the Global Defense Council in 2 hours. The council met in the secure chamber beneath the presidential palace. Representatives from every major nation sat around the circular table, their faces grim as they watched the transmission. Some looked angry. Others looked sick. All of them understood that humanity had just crossed a line they could never step back over. Admiral Richard Hayes commanded Earth's Space Forces. He was a careful man who believed in following rules and procedures. But as he watched footage of dead children, something hard and cold settled in his chest. What are our options? President Wells asked. General Patricia Davis spoke first. She was known for her aggressive tactics and had never backed down from a fight. We have 3 battle groups within striking distance of Zephyrian space. We could launch immediate retaliation strikes. Ambassador Stephen Brooks disagreed. He had spent his career trying to keep peace between different species. We should go through the Galactic Senate, file formal charges, demand justice through proper channels. The proper channels didn't protect those children, General Davis replied coldly. And starting a war won't bring them back, Ambassador Brooks. Shot back. President Wells raised her hand for silence. Admiral Hayes, what do our forces look like? Hayes consulted his tablet. We have 47 major warships currently deployed. The USS Vengeance is our newest and most powerful ship, under Captain Ryan Mitchell. We also have significant special operations assets that we've kept hidden from galactic oversight. Hidden assets? Ambassador Brooks looked alarmed. What kind of assets? The kind that ensure Earth's survival, General Davis said simply. For the next 4 hours, they debated. Some council members wanted immediate military action. Others pushed for diplomatic solutions. A few suggested economic sanctions or appeals to other alien governments. Catherine listened to them all, but her mind kept returning to the footage from New Haven. She thought about Amanda Foster kneeling beside her dead daughters. She thought about Lisa Parker's words. They were innocent. Finally, she stood up. The room fell silent. Gentlemen and ladies, we are not here to debate whether we should respond to this atrocity. We are here to decide how we respond. The murder of 800,000 children cannot and will not go unanswered. She walked to the large display screen and activated it. Admiral Hayes, I want you to prepare every available military asset for immediate deployment. General Davis, activate all special operations units. I don't care how secret they are. And what about the Galactic Senate? Ambassador Brooks asked. We'll notify them after we act, not before. Catherine turned to face the council. We are going to send a message to the Zephyrians and to every other species in the galaxy. A message they will never forget. The President's communications team worked through the night to prepare the transmission. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every known language, to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The message was simple. No threats, no ultimatums couched in diplomatic language. Just plain words that everyone could understand. To the Zephyrian Collective, and any who aided or supported the massacre at New Haven, you have 72 hours to surrender the individuals responsible for the murder of 800,000 human children. Failure to comply will result in consequences beyond your comprehension. This is your only warning. Run, humanity. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate. Most alien governments dismissed the threat as empty posturing. Humans were known as traders and explorers, not warriors. They sold goods and shared technology. They weren't conquerors. The Zephyrian High Command held an emergency meeting on their home world. Fleet Commander Vextar, fresh from his victory at New Haven, addressed the military leadership with confidence. The humans are bluffing, he declared. They have no significant military forces. Their ships are designed for exploration, not war. What if they're not bluffing? Asked Sub-Commander Kralix, one of the younger officers. Vextar laughed. Then they will learn the same lesson as their children. The Zephyrian Collective does. Not bow to inferior species. The Zephyrian response was broadcast galaxy-wide, just as Earth's message had been. Come and take them, if you can. Back on Earth, the 72-hour countdown had begun. President Wells stood in the command center, watching as reports flowed in from across human space. Every available ship was moving towards staging areas. Civilian transports were being converted to military use. Space stations that had been listed. As research facilities revealed hidden weapons, Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching his crew prepare for battle. The Vengeance was the most advanced ship in the human fleet, equipped with weapons that violated several galactic treaties. Its crew of 300 had trained for years in complete secrecy. Captain, his communications officer called out. We're receiving deployment orders. Understood. Set course for Grid 77 Alpha. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos worked in Earth's Intelligence Division. For 5 years, she had been monitoring Zephyrian communications, building profiles of their military leaders, and mapping their defensive positions. Information that had seemed purely academic was now critically important. I need everything we have on Zephyrian fleet movements, she told her team. Ship positions, command structures, supply lines, everything. Major Claire Thompson commanded. Earth's most classified unit, deep cover operatives who had been living among alien populations for years. These agents were activated for the first time since the program's creation. Calcine Phoenix, report status. She spoke into her encrypted communicator. Phoenix operational. Currently on Zephyrian Prime. Awaiting orders. Calcine Raven, report status. Raven operational. Zephyrian outer colonies, ready to proceed. One by one, agents across Zephyrian space confirmed their readiness. They were teachers, merchants, technicians, ordinary humans who had built lives among the aliens. None of the Zephyrians suspected that these friendly humans were actually highly trained Special Forces operatives. Dr. Nathan Porter worked frantically in his laboratory. For years, he had studied alien biology for peaceful purposes, developing medicines and treatments that could help different species. Now, that same knowledge was being used to create weapons specifically designed for Zephyrian physiology. How long until the neural disruptor is ready? General Davis asked. 6 hours. Porter replied. It will render them unconscious, but cause no permanent damage. We want them alive. President Wells was very clear. We're not going to stoop to their level. As the countdown continued, alien governments began to take notice. The Centaurian Republic offered to mediate. The Andromedan Trade Federation suggested economic sanctions. The crystal entities proposed a formal tribunal. Earth's response to all of them was the same: silence. Chancellor Tevara of the Centaurian Republic called an emergency session of the Galactic Senate. The humans are clearly planning something drastic. We must intervene before this situation spirals out of control. What can they really do? Asked the representative from the Void Dancers. Humans don't have the military capability to threaten a major power like the Zephyrian Collective. As the 72 hours ticked down, that question would soon be answered. Across human space, ships moved into position. Agents prepared for activation. Weapons were loaded, and systems came online. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity's children were threatened, and the lesson would be written in fire across the stars. The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had for the past 10 years. Children ran through the streets, laughing as they chased each other to school. Parents waved goodbye from their doorways, calling out reminders about lunch and homework. It was a normal day on a world that had never known war. Lisa Parker stood at her office window, watching the busy streets below. As the colony administrator, she felt proud of what they had built here. 800,000 people had made this distant planet their home. Half of them were children born under alien skies who had never seen Earth. The communication device on her desk buzzed. Jake Morrison's voice came through, calm as always. Lisa, we've got ships coming into the system. Big ones. Lisa frowned. They weren't expecting any supply ships for another month. How many ships, Jake? 12, maybe more. They're not responding to our calls. Jake Morrison had been the colony's security chief since the beginning. He was a former soldier who had seen real combat, unlike most of the colonists. If Jake was worried, Lisa knew she should be too. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the command center. Outside, children still played in the parks. Mothers pushed babies in strollers down the sidewalks. Nobody knew that death was falling from the sky. The command center sat at the heart of New Haven City. It was a simple building, designed for managing farming schedules and weather reports, not military threats. Jake stood before the main screen, his face dark with concern. There, he pointed at the display. Zephyrian ships, a whole battle fleet. Lisa's blood turned cold. Everyone knew about the Zephyrians. They were a warrior race that claimed large parts of this region of space. But New Haven was far from their territory. The colony had been carefully placed to avoid any conflicts. Why are they here? Lisa asked. I don't know. But they're not talking to us. Dr. Amanda Foster rushed into the room. She ran the colony's farming operations and was one of Lisa's closest friends. Her twin daughters, Maya and Sophie, were 8 years old and probably in their classroom right now. What's happening? Amanda asked. People are starting to panic. Someone said they saw warships. Jake nodded grimly. Zephyrian fleet. They showed up 20 minutes ago. But we have treaties, Amanda said. The Galactic Senate guarantees our right to be here. Try telling them that, Jake replied. The main screen flickered. A face appeared, alien, with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. Lisa had seen Zephyrians before in diplomatic meetings. This one wore military insignia. I am Fleet Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Collective, the alien said. Its voice was cold and mechanical. You are trespassing in our space. Lisa stepped forward. This is Administrator Parker of New Haven Colony. We are not in Zephyrian. Space. This system was surveyed and approved by the Galactic Senate. We have all the proper documents. Your documents mean nothing. You humans spread across the galaxy like a disease. You take worlds that do not belong to you. We bought this land legally, Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. We paid the fees. We followed all the rules. There are no rules for vermin. Vexstar replied, "You will serve as an example to other humans. Your kind will learn to stay in your own territory." The screen went black. Jake was already moving, hitting alarms and opening communication channels. "All citizens, this is Security Chief Morrison. Report to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill." Sirens began wailing across the colony. Lisa watched through the window as people started running. Parents scooped up their children. Teachers led their students toward the underground shelters that every colony was required to build. "They won't really attack civilians," Amanda said, but her voice shook. "The Galactic Senate would never allow it." "The Galactic Senate is very far away," Jake said grimly. Lisa opened a channel to Earth. It would take hours for any message to reach home, but she had to try. Emergency transmission to Earth Defense Command. New Haven colony under threat from Zephyrian fleet, requesting immediate assistance. The first explosions came 10 minutes later. Lisa felt the building shake as orbital bombardment began. Through the window, she saw bright flashes in the distance. The aliens weren't targeting the farms or the factories. They were hitting the residential areas. "The schools," Amanda whispered. "They're bombing the schools." Jake's face went white as reports flooded in from across the colony. The Zephyrians weren't trying to capture New Haven. They weren't even trying to force a surrender. They were systematically destroying every building where children might be found. Why? Lisa asked, but nobody answered. The bombardment continued for 3 hours. When it finally stopped, the silence was worse than the explosions had been. Jake tried to contact the emergency shelters, but most of them didn't respond. Amanda was the first to go outside. Lisa and Jake followed her through streets filled with smoke and rubble. The colony they had built with such care was gone. In its place was a wasteland of broken concrete and twisted metal. They found the first bodies near the elementary school. Small forms scattered across the playground like broken dolls. Amanda fell to her knees beside 2 girls with blonde hair. Maya and Sophie would never grow up now. Jake's radio crackled. Survivors were calling in from across the colony. Adults had survived in the deeper shelters, but every report was the same. The children were gone. All of them. Over the next few hours, the horrible truth became clear. The Zephyrians had used weapons designed to penetrate the emergency shelters where families took their children. They had targeted every school, every daycare center, every playground. 800,000 children had died in a single afternoon. Lisa stood in the ruins of the colony hospital where she had once watched babies take their first breaths. Now those same babies lay silent forever. She activated her personal recorder and began to speak. "This is Administrator Lisa Parker of New Haven Colony. Today, the Zephyrian Collective murdered 800,000 human children. They did not attack our military installations because we have none. They did not demand our surrender because they never intended to let us live. They killed our children to send a message to humanity." She paused, looking around at the destruction. "I don't know if this message will ever reach Earth, but if it does, I want everyone to know what happened here. These children never hurt anyone. They were innocent. And now they're gone." Amanda appeared beside her, tears streaming down her face. "What do we do now?" Lisa looked up at the sky, where Zephyrian ships still circled like vultures. "We survive. We remember, and we make sure Earth knows what they did." As night fell over New Haven, the 200,000 adult survivors gathered in the ruins of their homes. They had lost everything that mattered, but they were still alive, and they had a story to tell, a story that would change the galaxy forever.